my name's Audrey Wood, and today we're going to talk about The Breakfast Club. It was hailed as the quintessential 1980s film with an impact that stretches into today's society, but we'll talk about that later. First, let's talk about context. It was shot in 1984, which Rebel Without a Cause gave us an introduction to the life of a teenager, but 30 years or so later, there was still a lack of basic understanding of what Trues actually felt and experienced and went through. However, at the time, there was very little cinema television targeting teens, and fewer that teens would be caught dead watching. In fact, they used a lot of older actors to play teens, and this created, which it still does today, false idols, false roles, and false expectations of what teens should look like and act, and how they should interpret information. A lot of times these shows were made by adults, such as men, for boys or just children in general, so there's some things that were just going over our heads, topics we didn't understand, and sometimes they even over-fantasize and even over-sexualize some things. There's also an internal setting, which everything in this film occurred over the course of one day, Saturday, March 24th, 1984 to be exact, at a Chicago high school. Some of you may ask, why Saturday? Well, these kids are in detention. In fact, it was kind of common practice to have a Saturday detention period. It was also common practice to have a detention period before school started, like around breakfast time maybe, which is where we get the film's title, Breakfast Club. I think it's also important to note this film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Quite frankly, I believe this film was all three. In fact, they took extra special attention to make sure even the clothes are right. In fact, the 1980s were full of lots of color, but Allison's wardrobe was specifically chosen out so it wouldn't be that way. So let's also talk about production. This film is rated R due to profanity, images and depictions of drugs and smoking, and continued references to sex and violence. Today, the R rating might not have happened. However, it does cover some deeper topics that at the time weren't as commonplace as they are now. So I could definitely see how you wouldn't really want to show a 16-year-old this kind of stuff. Like, I would still stick with the R rating personally. The Breakfast film, I think you should also know, is considered an independent film with a smallish $1 million budget. I say smallish because $1 million is still a lot of money. However, that is a pretty small budget for that time period, especially with any studio behind it. This budget came from Hughes' own convincing of the investors. Basically, he said, I'm going to take a small budget, get a single location, and I'm going to shoot two movies at once. In fact, he shot Ferris Bueller's Day Off at the same time in order to save time and money. The shooting only lasted from March to May 1984, and then he utilized only really two locations. He utilized the interior of Maine North High School in Illinois, and then he used a nearby high school, Glenbrook North High School, for the exterior shots, which was only maybe 3 minutes of the film tops. And then, just a little neat fact, the second story of the Maine North High School was so hot that people would pass out, so they had to hire assistants in order to keep them awake, keep them hydrated, and to make sure they're snoring and interrupt the shooting. However, in I think recent years, they have calculated this film to have earned $51.5 million and counting, and has received tons of critical acclaim, so that small investment was worth it. Let's also talk about a little bit about the script. There are lots of scenes that were improvised. John Hughes was very accepted of suggestions, would often change things on the spot. This is probably why the film did so well, because teens were able to be part of the writing process. Like this film was written by teens for teens, so of course I'm going to have a greater appeal to it because I can relate to what they're saying. That is what I want to say. That is what I'm feeling. In fact, one of the first things you're going to see is a quote by David Bowie, and that was a suggestion by Allie, who plays Allison. Another thing we should talk about is Hughes likes to focus in on his characters, whether it's a raw or revealing a deeper truth. He wants to stay on them until it's almost even uncomfortable, and he likes to have those long, drawn-out conversations, the things that a teen might say and might be thinking, but it's amazing to hear it actually said out loud on the big screen and find out someone else has that too. Someone else as in someone who can actually say something and advocate for it. There's one scene where Brian's bearing out his truth and he's crying and he's breaking down, and it's so appealing that I was breaking down with him. I understood everything. And then he flipped and he started laughing, and I flipped and started laughing because I can understand that too. So obviously path is a big part in this film. So let's talk about John Hughes a little bit more. He's known as introducing the teen struggle to society because so few had touched on the subject before. And The Breakfast Club was meant to be his directorial debut. In fact, he was in the process of casting for it when he saw Molly Ringwald's headshot and decided to make two films for her. And I know that seems a little weird, but Molly Ringwald ended up becoming his muse. He took advice from her. He allowed her to stop him from going too far and adding unnecessary sexual or fantasy scenes. He almost fired a guy for her. In fact, the guy who played Bender would stay in character and would continuously harass her off set. And he was willing to fire him. The entire cast had to prevent it. And Ringwald was actually also able to change her casting. Originally, she was casted as Allison, and you'll see that as a completely different person than Claire, who she ended up playing. So let's talk about a little bit more about the Brat Pack, the people who are also in this film. Emilio Estevez is going to play Andrew Clark. What I picked out for you for this guy is Allison calls him, "You do everything everyone tells you to do. That is your problem," which you'll see really is. He's the people pleaser. He wants to please his dad. He wants to please his teachers. He wants to please his coach. He's just trying to do everything else for people in his life. But Allison's going to point out that he doesn't know what he wants for himself. The identity crisis we all have, oh no, I'm unhappy. What do I actually want to do? What do I want to do? That's going to happen here, and you're going to see it. Ali Sheedy's going to play Allison. She's going to have two good quotes. "When you grow up, the heart dies." Basically what she's saying is, as we're being Andrew and trying to please everybody, we're going to be chopping off little bits of ourselves. We're going to be giving up things that we love to do, the things that we're most passionate about in order to do it, and then we're going to realize we don't really have this anymore. Like, who we are, it's gone. The double-edged sword is also going to refer to something I know every girl endures, but probably some guys as well, that there's this fragile balance between promiscuous and prude. Like, how many kisses is too many, but how many kisses is too few, kind of thing. Let's also talk about Judd Nelson. He's going to play Bender, which you're going to see him have a constant need for attention and constant conflict with others. He's going to be kind of like the same way as a class clown or that popular guy, where he's just not as appreciated for it, but he still has that same drive and need for attention. He doesn't want to be alone. He wants affection and love and someone to care for him. You'll find out there's a little bit more deeper reason behind that as well. Ryan Michael Hall is going to play Brian, and Brian's going to have an epiphany. So what happens on Monday? Are we friends now? He's going to realize that even though we've broken down all these walls and we've seen these truths about people, but is that going to change anything? Are we going to be the ones to say, that's enough, it's enough, and we're in this together? Are we going to recognize that this person right next to me has had the same problem as I do, and am I going to help him? Or am I just going to brush it off the carpet and pretend like everything's fine again? There's also going to be John Kapelos, who's going to be the custodian. He's going to represent a middle ground. Like, he's going to see what these teens are going through, but he's also going to talk with the adults and see what their side of the story, too. You're also going to see Paul Gleason. He's going to be a teacher, Mr. Vernon. He's going to be portrayed in a very negative light. He's going to be consistently talking down to these kids and flaunting authority. Like, you know, the TV show we all hate, the one that's kind of shutting out your dreams, but is supposed to represent your future kind of deal. Yeah, hate that guy. However, he does have a very notable quote. "These kids will be running the country. That thought keeps him up at night." Basically, he's going to talk about how these kids are the future, the very thing that we know we are, but he's not treating us like that. So there's going to be a little bit of juxtaposition and irony in the fact that he's the one saying it, but it is altogether true. So let's talk about the themes. You're going to see the struggle of the American teenager to be understood. Whether to succeed or to live up to expectations of friends, family, authority, like they're going to tear themselves apart to show who they truly are on the inside. And we're going to see how different they all are, but yet they all have those same common things about them. We're also going to talk about stereotyping. So I'm actually going to give you the stereotypes. However, I hope you can figure out who's who. You're going to have a jock. You're going to have a princess or Miss Popular. You're going to have a bad boy. You're going to have a brainiac. And you're going to have a basket case, or that weirdo that you don't really want to hang out with kind of deal. Basically, we all know they exist in school, and they're actually part of life even, but the problem is when you hold them to that, you never allow them to escape that, you never find out who they truly are inside, and this film's going to explore that. They want to show you that empathize and show you that we're all actually the same on the inside, you just have to give each other the chance. We're also going to talk about mental illness and bullying, which public perception has changed since then, and basically, today we were putting greater emphasis and recognizing how that can impact our future, but back then, those are some of the things people wouldn't talk about. They were the hidden truths, the things that everyone was facing, everybody was struggling with. But now we're addressing those things. We're seeing the immediate change and how, yeah, it still sucks, but could you imagine doing this by yourself? Could you imagine if everybody was there? So let's talk about the impact of this film. Obviously, it generated success and fame for the director and characters. Molly Ringwald even found herself on the cover of Time magazine. He was held as a genius. But this film reached almost every teen. Like, it got the conversation started on a lot of things. And even though it lacked diversity with almost like actually an all-white class and even only heterosexual behavior, but Emil Welbekin, the creator of Native Son, who empowers gay black men, and John Singleton, who's inspired to make Boys in the Hood, they both recognized the lack of representation, but they were still able to relate and empathize with these characters' flaws and attempts to find their way in adulthood. So I definitely say it is something you can relate with. And then also this film also helped with female leads. Female leads are something a little bit harder to come by. Like even today, we're still trying to increase women's not even women's popularity, but just women's impact in Hollywood. Like they're being shut. The door was shut. Now we're trying to open it kind of deal. And this film was just one of those stepping stones to get there. So we have to appreciate that. So all right, that's all I have for you today. Please definitely watch it. It was really great. I love the film. You will too. Bye.